You're listening to Level Up with Melissa Zalouf from ironSource.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Level Up, the podcast for people who love making, growing, and of course, playing mobile games. For our listeners, the first Level Up episode, which was ever recorded, was actually recorded with Dan Greenberg about 3 years ago. And this episode, which features Dan once again, kicks off a new mini-series on creatives in mobile gaming, which is going to dive into everything from how to build a kick-ass creative team to an amazing ad and a great campaign. As I said, this episode features Dan Greenberg, who is ironSource's Chief Design Officer, and we are going to be talking about why creative is important today. And given that it is, and you're going to tell us why, how do we build a winning creative team? But maybe before we do that, I'll tell people why you're qualified to talk about this topic. I could let you do it, but I'm going to because I know enough. So you actually founded Playworks, which is ironSource's in-house creative studio. You took it from inception to what it is today, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is a 38-person strong global team, which has produced over 4,000 creatives for games ranging from Call of Duty Mobile to Homescapes. So tell me, why, from your perspective, having worked in this space for a while, why have creatives become so important in the game industry in the last couple of years?
So I think this topic is not like, it's actually what we talked about in 2019 a lot. It was like, I think it's well established today that in any serious game business that runs today has to have like a very strong creative arm in order to run the user acquisition. It just, as things become more and more automated, I think, and again, it's something that most of us are feeling it. The only thing that can really change a campaign to the better or to the worse, but let's say take it to the better, is the creative, because this is kind of also one of the last elements which are very human-centric. They're very based on experience, and it's not something that you can like automate or make it programmatic. Might change over time, but still it's not there. And there's something about also the gaming industry that sometimes we feel like it's been forever, but it's actually a very, very young industry, and user acquisition in gaming is actually very, very very young still. It's been just like a few years since it started. So just understanding the value of it and also implementing it and creating the teams that can run creative is all new to most game studios out there. But today I think it's already very well known. It gets a lot of attention, way more than we started doing it for our clients. But again, it's also always evolving, and it's very, very dynamic.
So you said it's well established that creative is important. Now, how do you build that team? How do you make sure, especially in something that requires probably both kind of right and left brain capabilities, what are the kind of must-have traits you look for in new talent?
So there's a few things which I think are very important. And again, I think it is very, very well connected to what you said about the fact that you need to be a very like well-rounded person in order to work in an environment that is very data-driven and performance-driven, but also very, very creative. And I think it's kind of also for me, and I think for most of my team, it's a super, super interesting place to be at, where you can combine such different things in one place. So it kind of reflects on each individual in the team, but also the way the team is built, that everyone has like a few tricks up their sleeves. So you can be either you could be like a motion designer, but that really loves data and like wants to see the numbers all the time, or you can be an analyst that comes from the numbers, but also really likes the creative. I see that a lot in interviews that I do for new team members, that like for example, if I'm talking with someone that comes from like the performance side or the data side, that being part of a creative team is a very, very big incentive for them, because I think once you're really good at data and like analyzing campaigns, stuff like that, it's really interesting to go to like the higher level in which that is the experience level. So I think like today most of like the most talented individuals have all of these things together, and also again as a team it's very multidisciplinary. So in the same team we have the performance guys, we have the designers, the game designers, the product people, the R&D. So everything is within that one group, which allows us to really get to like the highest levels of understanding and building the best tools. In the end, creating the creatives that bring the biggest performance.
How a big part of this, you've talked about data and you've talked about skill sets like motion designers, etc., and about performance, which is obviously very data oriented. How do you create how do you encourage creativity? We are going to actually, spoiler alert, going to have a whole episode on this with Playworks' creative lead. But what kind of atmosphere or what trait do you look for if you are looking for team members that are multidisciplinary or bring together a bunch of different skills? What is a kind of the indicator for you that they have creative potential?
So I think one of I think the main thing that I'm looking for, what I see in my team members is curiosity. I think in the end, it doesn't matter what is your specific profession or like what is the thing that you do best. There is something which should like underline each person in the team, which is I think his level of curiosity. Always asking why this worked or not, or why this trend is happening in the market, and actively looking for stuff, not just waiting for someone to tell you what should you do. So I think if you are an individual that has this curiosity, I think you can learn a lot of the other stuff. But I think that part of your personality is either you have it or not, or it should be like we always encourage that and try to always like develop it within the team.
And after you've hired the right candidates, and assuming that you've done so well, which you have a history of doing, how do you then create an atmosphere and a culture in which they can thrive? Also, how do you build a culture of creativity with people that are data driven? How do you sort of bridge multidisciplinary gaps or disciplinary gaps? So, what is that? What does the Playworks or what does the ideal creative environment look like?
So I think it's a combination of two things which are actually contradicting each other. So first of all, it's a very trust-based environment, meaning that most of our projects or most of our creatives are actually there is no like very strict plan on what to do, and we actually leave a lot of open room for the creative people, and it could be also, by the way, the developer that is working on the playable, to think and to propose and to change the way the creative is shaped. And sometimes it means that something won't work, right? So the creative could be bad, just won't hit the mark. But I think that this is very critical to create a very good creative environment. This is a place where no idea is a bad idea until we see the finished product, and then this is the other side. We have a very strong culture of also critiquing each other. So in the end, you can be part of the process and be the person that creates this specific creative. And again, you get all the freedom to take any decision that you think will make it right. But in the end, we also we have a very like rigorous play testing and like creative feedback process that you can get from, by the way, open to all of the teams. So me as an analyst, I can give you feedback on the creative that you did, even if I'm not part of the creative process. And this way, and we do it in a very open and very, very direct manner, because in the end, we really want to make sure that we are doing the best creative that we can, that will drive maximum performance for our clients. So there is kind of this mixed culture of, first of all, trusting and giving you like openness to do whatever you think will do, to do everything that you think that will work well. And on the other end, also getting very direct feedback on what you're doing that sometimes can bum you out because you thought you did a good job. But again, this is why we are a team, and this is why, in the end, I think we deliver creatives that are really like leading the industry.
And let's talk about operations now that we've talked about nice abstract concepts like culture. How do you structure the team, and how do you run day-to-day operations in a way that makes sure that creative output is high and also good, right? It's not just about the number of creatives you're doing, but about incrementally making them better.
So I think this is a topic for probably like 4 hours of talk. But I think, by the way, this is also, I think, where this is, I think, something we sometimes overlooked, the amount of operations that you have in a creative house. Or at least we were new to this, right? So we had to learn everything from scratch. We didn't come from this industry. So within the operations, I think there is like one main principle that guides us, is that anything that can be automated or done by a machine should be done by a machine, so the person could be free to think and bring his, like, again, human element to a creative. So we invest, like, we have a huge like R&D team and product team just to build tools that allow you to streamline the production, to make sure that you don't waste any minute on something that you shouldn't do. Also, in terms of like automating the way the creatives are uploaded to the campaigns, the way they're monitored after they're online, closing tickets, and again, creating like the most automated workflow as possible for any repeated or unnecessary to be done by a person job. I think this is probably the key to creating any efficient creative operation, because if you don't do that, there is a very direct correlation between the number of people that you have to the number of creatives you can do, and it's a very unhealthy, and it very, very quickly becomes financially impossible to have like a very strong team, especially if you're like a game studio, which is not that big. So always running in parallel in like building the team, but also creating the tools that can allow you to scale the operations.
And how a team structured in Playworks? Is it sort of, you put all the motion designers together, you put all the developers together, you put the game designers together, or not?
So I'm not sure I can give you this information, but I will try. So this is part of our secret sauce, but no, I can share that. I think one of the biggest changes that we did from the way we started to the way we are today, and again, we're talking about around 40 people. It's not a small team. Um, in the beginning, we had like teams that were based on their profession. It was very natural to think that, okay, let's take all of the motion designers, put them together. Let's take all of the graphic designers. Let's take the developers. And we found out that it created two problems. First of all, there is a very big issue with handovers between teams. It's just not efficient and takes time. So if I finish my part of the creative on Thursday, and the developer will be ready on next Tuesday, so it can wait a few days. Just waiting for a person, like the syncing between the teams takes a lot of time. This is one. Second, no matter how much you try to create the motivation in the team, there is an ownership issue that when you divide it between different people in different teams, it's hard to create that like full ownership that we're talking about. And I think about like a year and a half ago, we changed the model to like a squad based model. So each the teams are actually built now from one out of each profession, and they all sit together and they work together on the same games and same creatives. So you have within the same team all of the functions that need to create a playable, a video, interactive end card, static, whatever you want to create. You can do it within the same team. So we eliminated the time it takes to create a creative, and we eliminated the ownership issue. And it was really that's a really significant jump in both quality of what we're producing and also the time to market, which is always super important.
So I want to jump to talking a bit more about the industry, and not just about sort of how do you build the team in itself. Do you find, are you seeing more game companies, or maybe let's start from where we are today? Are most game companies outsourcing their creative production and operations, or not? And is it changing?
Yes, that's a great question. So I think from where we stand, and we see most of the industry, so we have a good vantage point. I think most big companies already understood that they have to create those teams inside. By the way, it's very different if we split it between videos and playables. So video production was also from the beginning very in-house, and I think in the majority of the studios. But playables never became like a strong in-house thing. Besides a few pioneers that took it, for example, Playworks did an amazing job in creating like an in-house playable team because they understood it's very important for their business. So I'm seeing a very strong shift towards more and more in-house teams, but I think also that there's still a way to go. I think throughout 2019, I every time I met with a game studio, I told them that I think should be like top priority for them because I see the impact of when you have a strong enough team and when you don't have one. But so the trend is, I think, towards that. But still, by the way, it is a very big issue with the smaller teams that when they grow, it's kind of hard for them to maybe understand the importance of it, or actually to bet on it versus having more Unity developers for the game, right? So if I can recommend something, is to always have it like in top priority and like part of really the early steps of building a game studio.
Are there any disadvantages to in-housing?
Yeah, so if there is a disadvantage, is sometimes your team becomes a bit narrow in their vision. So again, strong creative teams, even if they're in house, they will know to look at the market, to adopt trends, to find new ideas. But it's hard when you're working every day on the same games. I think it will be hard. And again, I'm not in that position, so it's hard for me to tell. But I think that will be the main issue. And what I'm seeing a lot of the times with us is that we become a partner for the in-house studios, sometimes just to give ideas. So give our own like take, which is external to the in-house teams that maybe sometimes already feel like, okay, we've done 1,000 concepts already. Where can we take this anymore? So I think if there is an issue, it's probably going to be it. But again, there's a lot of advantages to why to do it.
And last question, is there one particular takeaway from your experience building up Playworks that you'd like to share, beyond the ones you already have, that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yes. So I think for me at least, my personal takeaway from my experience is just like, I think we're working in the coolest industry in the world. So I think being in the rise of mobile gaming, the way it's happening within the past few years, it's super exciting. For me personally, it took me to places of like, going to Blizzard's office, which for me is like a dream. So to be in this point of time, which is kind of rare to see like a rise of a huge industry like the mobile gaming, and being part of it and working with the game studios to help them like scale their games and like create these huge businesses that now like became like the talk of the world. And it's for me it's super gratifying, and I think anyone that's part of it should be happy.
Can you hear the smile on his face? Thank you very much, Dan, for that lovely, fun episode. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Tune in next episode, where we'll be talking to Elad Gabison, who's creative lead at Playworks, on basically how can you teach yourself to be creative, because apparently you don't need to be born with it.